Welcome to another travel product review. Today we're going to review the 1.5-hour guided architecture cruise. And the one thing about our reviews is they're always favorable. What I try doing is putting myself in the shoes of a visitor, seeing this listing on Get Your Guide, and providing feedback what they might be thinking when they see the pictures, the text, and the reviews. And I'm going to put a 10-minute timer. I'm not going to try to go past that. Let's start the timer now. Now let's get started. Now, the first thing I do when I look at any listing on Get Your Guide is I just look at the title, 1.5-hour guided architecture cruise. And pretty simple, to the point, tells you how long it is and have no problems. The first thing I do is look here, view all 24 images. That seems a lot in my opinion. I don't think going through all these pictures is really we're gonna go through all the pictures before you wanna kind of just click off. But I think the ideal number is 13 to 15, and we're going to go ahead and look at those pictures now. But what I'm doing here is to see if the pictures matches the title. So I see an awesome picture of the boat within the river in the city. I click here and I say, now we're getting close. This is what it looks like on the boat. I'm looking to see how close the people are to each other. And then I'm saying, oh, already there's a nighttime option to see the city illuminated. Another picture of the boat, another picture of the, I see that there's a bar on there. It's a little artsy. I like to see it back a little bit further. Awesome shot of the river, awesome shot of a different type of boat. More pictures of the boat, more skyline, more skyline, more skyline. People on it. And then already you're kind of seeing the same type of photos. A bunch of people on top of the boat within the water, a close-up shot, and then some skyline shots. I like this shot. This shows where it goes. And this is I like this, that they showed what the inside looks like of one of the boats. Already I'm thinking, I like to see how many different boats do this tour. So you set the expectation that you might be on one boat or you might be on a different boat. And then this one is kind of open, where it must be coming in and out of a marina or it leaving. So the only thing I didn't see is like the ticket booth. I didn't see where you might check in for this activity. So I like to see that as well. That just gives the expectations of where to check in, the different type of boats that you might take. If there's only one boat, I like to see different boats. But the next thing I do is I look at who the activity provider is, and Wanderla Tours and Cruises. And so far, I know this company. I believe it's their boats, but I didn't see any there. So I look at the activity provider to make sure that is it somebody else putting on the tour and using the boats, or is it the actual vendor or the boat operator who's listing this? I always like knowing that. And then I glance over here at 3,809 reviews. That's a lot. It shows that this is a very popular activity, because if you have that many reviews, then you're more likely to have a lot of sales as well. And then I'm just going to move down to this section right here about this activity. So I'm looking at, it's 1.5 hours. We saw that with the title, skip the line ticket and live tour guide. Now, I would like to see skip the line ticket. I know this is said, but do you really skip the line? And which part do you skip it? Is it during the check-in, or is it during the boarding of the vessel? That's the one thing that I'd like to understand, is the skip the line ticket. What does it entail? Now, the next section is, I tell anybody that when you're on a Get Your Guide listing, just go ahead and fill in this section, because if there's different packages, you'll be able to see it clearly after you just check the dates and check the availability. So you have 2 price points, adults and children. Now I'm looking to see if there's any blackout dates, if there's any discounted prices for weekends versus weekdays. There isn't. I'm just going to choose a date, and now I'm going to come to this section here where the children's $20, adults $44. There's no other packages with this, but this gives me the times. Now I would like to see the times listed somewhere, and by a quick glance, you don't see that this is a timed, so you'd see all these different times. I don't know if those are just the options for that day, so I'd like to see somewhere here in the description maybe What times do you have? But that's just me. And then that puts us down. I like to look here. The itinerary, this is a new feature with Get Your Guide. I think a lot of activity providers can benefit by filling this out. And we're just going to look to see each location, right? Starting point, Merchant Mart, Marina City Goldberg, Willis Tower, Chicago Board of Trade Building, Tribune Tower, Aon Center, NBC Tower. I don't know if those are all the highlights, but I can tell you in these pictures, I wouldn't know one building for the other. So even if the pictures had a little description of what picture that is, to match which part of the itinerary you would see could be helpful. Now we're just going to move into the highlights section. I like to look at some of the text in detail and say, well, the highlights is the most important that the company is saying that you'll experience. Pre-purchase your ticket to skip the ticket line and guarantee your place on this popular cruise. Experience the architectural river tour, which started it all back in 1935. I think it started it for that company. Enjoy year-long cruising with a choice of outside deck topping or indoor climate-controlled setting. Learn from expert tour guides the importance of Chicago's architecture and how it has developed over the years. Enjoy true Chicago hospitality with locally sourced food and drinks available at a full-service cash bar. Now, already, if there's options for food and it's locally sourced, I would like to see some sort of menu. I'd like to see some details of what my options are, just to give me an idea of what to expect and get people excited to take the tour. Maybe some people, I think it's a full meal. Just throwing that out there. Now we're going to continue and say, this description is a little long. I don't think people really read all the description, especially when I quick glance. So I'm going to pass that over. Now I'm just going to look at what it includes. 1.5 hour cruise, boat trip along the main north-south river, access to open deck, access to climate-conditioned interior deck. That's where sometimes I wish that people would read it, because as I'm reading some of these things, it doesn't make access to climate-conditioned interior deck. It doesn't resonate with me a little bit. Local expert tour guide, great. What's not included, gratuities, beverages, and snacks available for purchase on board. And then you just say, the closest address to most docks is 400 North Michigan Avenue, Chicago, near the Wrigley Building. From there, you can check in with a dock employee who can direct you to your boarding area. So there's multiple check-in locations. So that's where I'd like to see different check-in locations that are available. And I'm just going to, what to bring, a sun hat, children under 4, seats on the decks are chosen on first come, first served basis. That's good to know. All bags are subject to search. Good. Vessels include restrooms with diaper changing tables, cash bar, and climate control. Passengers can bring their own non-alcoholic beverages and food. That's good to know as well. Now I'm going to move into the important area is the reviews. Now I want to mention I do not represent this company, nor do I represent Get Your Guide. I'm simply providing feedback of what I'm thinking when I read some of the negative reviews, which a lot of us are trained to do now before making purchases. So we're going to take a look at those reviews. I'm going to give you some feedback of what's going through my head and just see how others might be interpreting the negative reviews. Before we get started, I always want to say that what happens to a lot of these reviews is there's some things, the weather was a problem, didn't know where to go, couldn't hear the guide, couldn't hear the speaker, and we're going to see if some of those expectations are there. And I always don't think it's fair that these negative reviews get to stay there forever when we expect some of those reviews to be there just because. But let's look. Boat very full. The guide spoke very fast and was very difficult to understand. The quality and positioning of the speakers were very poor, so we didn't know what was going on. She seemed very knowledgeable and was funny. Some bits we did hear, but it was lost. Other people commented on this as well. I was looking forward to hearing about the buildings and end up absolutely none the wiser. You know, it just goes, everybody's not going to enjoy the speakers. The speakers are not like set up to always to kind of do it, so it's a little challenging if there's a lot of people on board because you're going to hear the talking. On the day of the tour, the weather was simply terrible, snow, rain, and wind, and I'm sure the tour would be canceled, but no, the tour took place. To see the city, you had to stand outside, and we just went numb. Weather is a factor. And I think other companies say whether permissible or go out, rain or snow, we still continue the tour. That's just something to kind of put there to kind of help people that the weather could be a factor. If sat in the back, cannot see anything. If facing to the left. Again, you know, positioning is important. If you buy a ticket on Get Your Guide, then you should skip the line and you should get a good seat on there. So that would be interesting to see how they relate to these positionings of seats and skip the line. Is there somebody helping you find the best spots? I'd be curious. It is only spoken in English and they don't have any translation system, so you don't know anything. Well, they wrote that in English, so that was pretty good. So I want to go over here, right up here, and it says live tour guide is in English. So that's clearly states it, and so the expectation of that visitor was they didn't like it. So that's where I think that some of these reviews are not fair because it clearly states that, and I believe that if you're with these companies should be able to remove some things if it was already pre-stated in the details. I'm only going to read one more. These rides should only be filled for the upstairs as we were not able to get the information. We were seated below with only one view. The information was given for the opposite view. Now, I guess that what they mean is you're sitting on one side of the boat downstairs and they're pointing away to the opposite side or vice versa, and that could be a problem, but you wouldn't know. All right, I went too fast. I went too long, I mean, and so I think this is a wonderful tour. I've done this tour before. It's awesome. You get to see the architecture. A lot of these details, you know, there's always going to be challenges. Speakers, tour guides, understanding it too fast, weather related, too cold. So just have those expectations when you go on these cruises, and just kind of be open-minded that some things are always going to be a challenge, but have a great time. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe to more videos like this, then subscribe. And I'm going to put a link in the video's description so you can make a purchase to this tour as well. Otherwise, if you visit the Chicago area, please, you definitely want to take this cruise.